Yo, what is up, guys? It's Pedro here, and today we got another Washington Commanders weekly stream, and I got my guy Nati from DMV Sports Zone, where Abdullah, Nati, Evan, and Noah post great content. DMV stuffs. Any sports you like from the DMV, college, pro, all that stuff. So make sure you guys check them out. And in today's video, we're gonna kind of recap training camp over the last few weeks, some of the biggest takeaways, and we'll also preview a little bit of the first preseason game for the Washington Commanders. So appreciate you coming on, Nati, and how are you doing?
Doing well. Getting some rest in before school starts back up, but it's always fun talking Commanders, especially with you, bro. So it should be a fun one.
Yep, for sure. So I think we'll start off with at least some of the preseason news that came out the last couple of days with Ron Rivera. And what's up, Kyrie is buff. What's up, SP? What's up, Joe? What's up, ITZ? So I think so. We'll start off with preseason. Ron Rivera said Carson Wentz will play. He said most of the starters will play. I think he said 15 to 20 snaps. That's what he said.
Yep.
So that's anywhere. I mean, it depends on how they do, obviously, because if they're not doing well, then that could be 3 series, could be even 4. But if they're doing well, it could be. I mean, probably a minimum of 1 series or probably 2 series. Honestly, is the minimum because it's hard to get a 15 play series, but they could do it. But I think they'll probably play 3 series is probably what I think they'll do. Not much more than that. And then after that, we'll see Heineke, depending on how long the starters played in terms of time. We'll see Heineke, play some of that second quarter, some of that third, and then Howell play the rest. So I'm excited to watch some football, and especially the young guys. Like we want to see Terry play, and it'll be nice. But like we know what we're getting from Terry. We know what we're getting from like a guy like Kendall Fuller, Montez, guys like that. We know what we're gonna get out of them for the most part. But guys like Jamin Davis, Jahan Dotson, Sam Howell, young guys that we haven't seen play yet, or still have a lot to prove. I'm excited to watch those guys for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of preseason game number one, I definitely agree with you. My number one storyline is the Sam Howell versus Matt Corral show. I just love seeing rookie quarterbacks playing the preseason, trying to see, if they're going to be a part of that next generation of quarterbacks that'll take over the league and stuff. And it's particularly interesting this year because there was a lot of talk about who was going to be the first quarterback taken, right? And Kenny Pickett ultimately was that guy, first rounder, but it seems like he's struggling out there in Pittsburgh. Matt Corral, third rounder, also picked ahead of Sam Howell. So it's going to be interesting to see what the two quarterbacks show that out there on the field on Saturday. But I'll also say, like, the tight end group is also pretty interesting to me, just seeing how it's panned out during training camp. We've had some injuries to John Bates and Cole Turner, but they both, especially Turner, have shown some good things out there on the practice field. And Curtis Hodges seemingly has come out of nowhere. Also have Armani Rogers, and so it should be interesting to see what we see out of the tight ends on Saturday.
Yep, for sure. Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, yeah. Sorry, guys, I'm having a ton of lag issues. But yeah, the tight end group is going to be, exciting to watch for sure. And like you said, Cole Turner probably not going to play. We'll see. I'm hoping he does because, he's one of those guys I'm excited to watch for sure. John Bates, I think he'll play. But again, we don't know that for sure. And, he's been practicing for the most part. But I think today he didn't practice. You think those two are going to play or not?
On Saturday, I don't think so. I think it's mostly going to be the Curtis Hodges, Armani Rogers, and so on show.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Bates plays a little bit. Cole Turner, I don't see him playing for sure. Maybe week 2. And then I think he'll definitely get a game in. I don't think the injury's that serious, but with injuries like that, they learned hopefully from the Curtis Samuel saga that, you can't rush those guys back. So, and the other news, Curtis Samuel is expected to play. So, how you feel about that? Do you think that's the right move? And are you excited to see what he can do?
Yeah, all the talk throughout the offseason was whether Curtis Samuel would be ready to suit up come week 1 of the regular season. And it seems full go come Saturday, week 1 of the preseason. So I'm excited, right? Because we kept talking about how, him not being fully back after a year and a half of, rest and stuff is kind of worrisome. But by all accounts, even today during training camp, I don't know if you saw the couple of clips that were put out there by John Keim and Matthew Peraz, but he looks pretty spry. He was catching some nice passes in the back of the end zone, even made an acrobatic catch where he jumped up into the air, corralled the ball into his hands, and scored the 6 points. So I'm excited to see Curtis Samuel out there in the field. I mean, he's on the books for almost $13 million on the salary cap. Like he needs to be a star for us, in my opinion, to get to the 10, 11 win mark that a lot of fans, maybe some fans in the comment section, also believe we'll get to.
Yeah, I think he needs to, if he plays the 17 games, I think he needs to approach close to 1,000 yards from scrimmage, not, just receiving, because I think that's going to be tough, being probably the third receiving option on the team behind Jahan Dotson, because I think he's overpassed Curtis at this point. I mean, you have to think, though, because we talk about the chemistry between Terry and Carson. Well, you could say the same thing with Carson and Curtis, because he was in and out of OTAs, so maybe had a few sessions with Wentz. He didn't go out to LA with Wentz and Terry and them, and he's missed, I would say half of training camp, maybe 40% of training camp. So Terry's gotten more work with Wentz than Curtis has. So that is also something that you have to keep in mind. So them getting those reps, I think, is important for sure, even if it's one series. And, Washington with Rivera, they've started off pretty slow the last couple of years. And I don't really think maybe it has something to do with the preseason. Maybe it doesn't, but they didn't really play the starters much last year. So, them playing, I like the idea of playing them, 15 to 20 plays. And then, I think they should still play them in week 2, and then maybe even week 3 as well. But if you're not going to play them in week 3, I would play the starters minimum a half in week 2, maybe even more. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think a half during week 2 might be the best way to go for the offense. But on what you said earlier about our team starting off slow, even that great 2020 season in terms of, how our defense played, like we were top in several categories and stuff. For the last 2 years, our defense especially has started off very slow. I don't know if that's something that a lot of fans think about, but it's just happened. And obviously last year was super slow. We ranked bottom of the league in a lot of categories, pass defense, rush defense. It didn't really matter. So I definitely agree with you. It's nice to see some of the starters out there week 1. It's definitely a different approach than what the Patriots are taking, right? I believe Mac Jones, the Patriots-Giants game is on right now, but I believe Mac Jones is not starting tonight, and they're sort of easing him in, even with the offensive struggles that have gone underway in training camp for the New England Patriots. So I definitely think it's a different approach, but for a team like this with so many moving parts, so many guys that we're just bringing in, especially the quarterback, right, the centerpiece of our offense, I feel like it only makes sense for them to get some reps week 1.
No, yeah, I definitely agree for sure. So what are some starters that you would say you would want to get more than 15 to 20 plays? Like Terry, I don't think we need to see him more than 15 to 20 plays. Even Jahan, honestly, I don't need to see him that much. But there are guys that I 100% want more than 15 to 20 plays. I could honestly say the whole game for some of them.
Yeah, in terms of on the offense, I will say I want to see a lot of Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson, because for as much as some fans like to think, Antonio Gibson has a stranglehold on the RB1 position in Washington, I think Brian Robinson is definitely on his heels, and Gibson's only 1 or 2 fumbles away from essentially being a backup on this team, in my opinion. So I want to see a lot of both of those running backs. I also want to see a little bit of Jared Patterson as well, Jonathan Williams. We talked about on our last live stream how it was kind of a surprise that Jared Patterson wasn't even listed among the top 4 running backs on this roster. So I definitely want to see how those two battle it out week 1 of training, or the preseason, but really throughout the preseason. And then on the defense, I will say I definitely want to see a lot of Jamin Davis. A lot of Jamin Davis. There are still a lot of question marks around him and whether he's going to be our starting linebacker for the future. So I want to see a lot of reps out of him. But outside of that, maybe in terms of draft picks from this year, I would like to see a lot of Percy Butler because, again, right after we drafted him in that post-draft presser, Ron Rivera immediately spoke about how much we're going to use Percy Butler on our defense and stuff. And we haven't really heard too much about him during training camp, but I would love to see how they utilize him. Although they'll probably keep things close to the vest. They probably won't, make him play all over the field just to save some plays for the regular season. But I definitely want to see a lot of Percy Butler as well.
Yeah, for sure. And let's see, Kyrie's Buff says, Cameron Curl play more than half. Honestly, I'm fine with Curl just playing the 15 to 20. Like, we know what we're getting out of Curl. Very solid player at the minimum. I think he has, like, Pro Bowl potential. Like, the thing with Curl, though, it's like Curl, like, it's you got the Brandon Sheriffs of the world and the Cameron Curls of the world in terms of, like, Curl will never get that recognition in terms of, like, we all know how good he is. Like, Washington fans, we know how good he is. But the average fan on the Buffalo Bills might not even know who Cameron Curl is because he's drafted in the 7th round versus Brandon Sheriff, who was drafted in the top 5. And a lot of the times, I think he definitely deserved those Pro Bowl nods. But I think there was like once or twice where I was like, the guy played 11 games and he was okay in those games and he still made the Pro Bowl. But that he made it every single year because he was a good player, but also because he was a first-round top 5 pick. I said the same thing after we drafted Chase Young. I was like, this guy, every year he plays, will make the Pro Bowl. As long as he's okay, he's going to make the Pro Bowl. And what did he do? He made the Pro Bowl first year when, honestly, like, there was guys that you could debate were more deserving. Like, it was debatable, but, like, still. But, like, those guys that are like that get the recognition. So, I don't know. Curl, I think he's a really good player. I don't know if he's going to make a Pro Bowl in his career, but I think he should. I think he's that level of player.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I just think it's going to be hard for him as a 7th round pick. That's going to be the label that sticks with him throughout his career, really. Maybe, we get to a point where, unfortunately, Cam Curl is no longer on Washington and he decides to go on another team. It wouldn't surprise me in his first season if he gets elected to his first Pro Bowl just because we're Washington and players usually get a lot of the recognition, a la Trent Williams, when they're outside of this team. So, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and also, I think what also hurts him is, like, if it's hard to quantify how good a safety is. You can a little bit. Like, obviously, if a safety gets 10 interceptions, like, he's doing at least something right for the most part. Like, Trayvon Diggs was good last year, but there was, parts of his game that were not good. But, like, a receiver, if a 7th round receiver in his 3rd year gets 1,300 yards, like, everyone knows, like, everyone looks up, like, oh, like, who's the top yard getter in the league, or who's leading the league in yards, who's top 5, who's top 10. Everyone does fantasy, so everyone knows these guys. Versus a 7th round safety, it's much harder, and like guards and tackles like that, it's much harder for these guys to get the recognition. But we'll see what's up. Sway Run, what's up, Meest? He says, haven't looked forward to a first preseason game this much in a while. Hopefully, we'll get at least a full half of Howell. I think they said probably not a full half. I mean, it's pretty much guaranteed Howell isn't getting a half because I think Ron Rivera said Heineke's probably going to play a little bit in the 3rd. So it really depends on how much time that Wentz and first team offense take up, because it's 15 to 20 snaps. But sometimes 15 to 20 snaps, you can get off the field in, a quarter. But sometimes it might be a little bit more than that. Maybe it'll be a quarter. There might only be like 4 minutes left in the first half. And in that case, Heineke's probably going to play until either the start of the 4th quarter or right before the 3rd quarter ends. So I think, honestly, like, you got to play Heineke, just like it's this weird not playing a quarterback, especially like a backup. But, like, I feel like you don't need to play him because he knows offense. He knows the teammates. And
what you have in him.
Yeah, you know what you have in him. He also, I know he didn't get really injured last year, but, like, he has that kind of injury-prone label on him. We don't know if it's fully true, but he has had a bunch of injury issues in the past. So, like, you don't really need to see Heineke play. I love Heineke, though. Like, he's a really solid backup, but, like, that's what he is. He's a backup. And Howell is a 3rd stringer now, but he has the potential to maybe be an okay starter. And, if Wentz works out, and that's great. You got Wentz, and if Howell works out at the same time, you can trade Howell for some, good capital. Maybe a second, third, fourth round pick, which is more than what you used on him. So that's something that I think maybe after the first game, you don't play Heineke that much in the second or third game. Maybe not at all in one of those games. You could give him a day off. But sorry, but yeah, I definitely agree. I want to see Howell play. Maybe in the second and third game, like see him play at least a half in each of those.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. One, sorry, but just to go back to like the Cam Curl point, like I think one thing that will for sure help him get a lot more recognition, and we've heard it said before, and I'll say it here, just win. Like us winning will also help out because, for example, Antoine Winfield Jr., right, the safety for the Bucs, in my opinion, isn't nearly as good of a safety as Cameron Curl, but a lot more people started to recognize him. Well, I guess the name definitely helps, right? Just being the son of a former
and
NFL
he was like,
player.
What, a second round pick?
Yeah, he's a second round pick. But I feel like, at least for me, I started to recognize him more as the Bucs started to get deeper in that first, Super Bowl run. They started to play really tight. Some other teams in the NFC started to win more games in the playoffs as well. And as they continued to win, we saw more of him, and that just left a lasting memory in our head that he's a pretty decent safety on the Buccaneers. He probably might be one of the best safeties in the league just because of that. But on your point here about who we want to see like play in terms of quarterbacks, I definitely think for me it would be most ideal to see maybe a quarter of Wentz, a quarter of Heineke, and then a half of Howell. We might not see that in game 1. We might see that in game 3. But that's what I would like to see. I just want to see a lot of Howell because for as much as a lot of people are hyping him up, for as much as he's playing or practicing pretty well in training camp, I want to see him out there on the field against another team's defense and not our own, and see how he pans out. And he's our 5th round pick, but just last year he was supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks taken in the NFL draft. His stock fell a little bit because of his college tape in his last year in college, but he still has all the tools, and I'm still high on him. A lot of fans are excited about him. I would like to see a half out of him, but I don't know if the team is quite ready to do that just yet.
And not even last year, like this year, before the draft, there was people saying he's he's going in second. Like I remember people like, oh, don't be surprised if he goes in the first round. And that's just crazy how he fell. And I think he was better than a couple of quarterbacks selected before him. Let's see. Me says, I doubt Wentz plays more than 2 series regardless of snap count. I mean, I could see that unless I doubt Ron lets him, stop. I doubt Ron just takes him off the field if they go 3 and out 2 times. That's just not something you want to, end your first game off with. They played 6 plays total, 2 3 and outs. That's just not even enough reps either. In that case, I think you gotta it does depend on the snap count because 2 3 and outs, that's not enough plays, and that's just gonna have a bitter taste in their mouth. So I think it depends more on the plays. But if they go one drive for 11, their first drive is 11, 12 plays and they score a touchdown at the end, I could definitely see Ron ending on that. I think that's a little bit different. And SP says so many question marks. Turner, Del Rio, Wentz. I agree. All those guys are question marks. I mean, Wentz is better than Heineke. We know that. But the question is how much better? Is he way, way better? Because Heineke's probably, if you had to rank him amongst NFL starting QBs last year, he was in the low, in the late 20s, past 25, 26. But that's, you got to consider, he's barely above some of those rookies last year that were starting a bunch of games. He was, besides the rookies, he was better than a couple other starters, maybe Daniel Jones and a couple other guys, but that's really it. Wentz is probably, I would say, anywhere from 18 to 23. I think that's a fair range for him. I don't think he's elite.
Pedro, a lot of people would say you're hating with that ranking. A lot of people would say he's definitely top half.
I mean, maybe I'll say 16 to 22, but I don't think you can put him much higher than that for now. Let's see. And what's up, Sway Run? What's up, G-Man? Appreciate you guys coming through. I think Carson. I think maybe Washington fans overrate him a little bit, but I think he's more overhated than overrated. Like it's just, or like by Washington fans, like the national fans overhate him more than we overrate him. Like I consistently see him being ranked as like the 29th ranked quarterback behind guys like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, like Daniel Jones, and it's just like seriously, like that's just it's not even close with all those guys right there. Wentz like is way better than all those guys. Like people like will be like, oh, the Commanders are a sleeper team, and then someone else will be like, oh, they have Carson Wentz at QB. Like they're acting like he's a liability when maybe at times he can be a liability, but like he's definitely not past 25.
Always a liability.
What?
He's definitely not always a liability.
Yeah, he's not always a liability, and he's lower. He's not lower than 25 in terms of like QB rankings, where like a lot of people think he is. I think he's like maybe average. Sometimes a little bit above average.
Yep.
A lot of times average, sometimes below average. Last year, I would say mostly average. But a couple in 2020, he was terrible. And then like people don't realize though, like he had 2 really good years in 2018, 2019, where like he was a top 10 QB. So like if we can get, we don't need I would love 2017 Carson Wentz. I would love that. If we can get 2019 Wentz, 2018 Wentz, like that, which is post ACL injury, like that would be amazing. So we'll see if it happens. But we don't even like, we just need a decent amount better than Heineke, and we'll be better this year. And also the health. He's got to stay healthy too, which is a question mark with him.
Yeah, I'll just say this. It's not really off of your point, but I mean, you mentioned the 2017. A lot of Commanders out there like to say, oh, Carson Wentz is just 5 years removed from a spectacular MVP-like season. He was amazing that season. If we could only bring that sort of production here in DC, we would be a Super Bowl contender. And my exact response to that is, oh, you're talking about going back 5 years. I only have to go back 2 years to see a 16 touchdown, 15 interception, injury-plagued, turmoil constantly on and off the field Carson Wentz season in Philadelphia. So you kind of have to like view his entire career as is. I will say, I think we're going to see more of 2021 Carson Wentz, both the good and the bad. The stats will show good production from him, but at the end of the day, I just don't know if he's going to be the guy that brings us over the top, just like he wasn't the guy that brought the Colts over the top.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. If we can get a little bit better version of 2021 Wentz, like I think that would really, really help us out. Because I think a little bit better version of Wentz is probably 14 to 17, kind of in that range. And we haven't had that, type of QB since Kirk. And that's going back five plus years. So if we can get that, like if Kirk had the weapon, I mean, he did at some point have good weapons around him, but I feel like these receivers, if they pan out, can be as
more
good.
Talented.
Can be as good or better than Pierre, Deshaun Jackson, Jameson Crowder. And then I think offensive line, I don't know. They obviously before had Trent Williams, which is like way better than anyone we have right now. But like maybe we're more consistent. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Running game, I think probably we have the better overall running game with Gibson, McKissick, and Brian Robinson. So, I mean, it's hard to debate, 5 years down the line. But I don't know. We'll see. If Kirk Cousins was on this team, I would predict probably minimum 10 games, probably 11 games. So if we can get, I think Carson Wentz can be as good as Kirk Cousins. If we can get what?
Just to provide some pushback, what makes you think that if Kirk was in this situation to get us to 10 wins when he's got the Vikings to one more win than we've had the last 2 years despite our struggles?
That is true. That is true that the Vikings have not been good, and it really, I guess it would depend on our defense, on how our defense plays. The Vikings defense has been absolutely atrocious.
Ours was last year too.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. If our defense plays like it did in 2020, a little bit better because we did play against a cupcake schedule at the end of the year, I think that if paired with Kirk, I think we would be better or we would, win 10 plus games. And also, if you really watch it, and I kind of know because I listen to Kevin Sheehan and he's like a Kirk fanboy, they have a terrible kicking situation. Like their kickers are awful, 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 worse than ours, which is
weren't we having kicker issues with Dustin Hopkins too before?
Yeah, not as bad
Joey
as what they have, and also Hopkins had a couple good years when Kirk was here, but I'm not gonna defend Dustin Hopkins because I was clamoring for them to get rid of him, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, wouldn't you say if Wentz plays like he did in 2019, maybe a little bit worse? Because I think 2019 he was undoubtedly a top 10 QB. He dragged the Eagles to the playoffs with no receivers.
No weapons.
Like if we had 2019 a little worse version of Carson Wentz, like you would feel really good about this season, right? You would feel like pretty confident in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, I would. I will say the jury's still out on that one because I want to see what our defense does, right? We have the talent and stuff, but who knows how long Chase Young is out? Who knows if Jamin Davis is going to pan out as a starting linebacker now for our team? Who knows if the secondary is going to improve off of, year 2 for William Jackson here and Kendall Fuller there and Benjamin St. Juste in the nickel. So I don't know if it's a guaranteed playoff spot just because I want to see how our defense plays out, but I would like our chances for sure if we can get back to 2019 Wentz. Yep. But then again, you're going back to 2019. I could just as easily say, what if we go back to 2020 Wentz? And what if he doesn't do well here in DC? Luckily, we're only on the hook for $28 million this year. We don't really have to pay anything beyond that if we cut him. But I don't know. So you got to take the good and the bad with him.
Yep. Let's see. Kevin Charlie Kuba says, I really like Dax Milne. We'll talk about him a little bit. I think, though, 2020 Wentz was, like, more of an outlier than 2017 Wentz because, like, he really didn't – he showed more seasons closer to 2017 than he showed closer to 2020. He had one terrible season. Besides that, he had at work – I mean, I'm not counting his rookie year. His rookie year, not really counting that because that's just totally different. But his 2021 was solid, not great, not terrible. Like, he wasn't the reason they didn't make the playoffs last year. He wasn't the reason they didn't make the playoffs. Like, he didn't give up 30-plus points to the Jaguars. He didn't – I think their run game against the Jaguars in that last game they were terrible. So, like, he didn't play well at all, but he wasn't the reason they didn't make the playoffs. And, he had a really good year in 2018. You look at those stats, he only played 12 games. That's a problem. But you look at 2018, he was incredible. 2019, also top 10-ish QB play. 2020, probably worst QB in the NFL, probably bottom 3, bottom 5. And then last year, middle of the pack to slightly below average. So that 2020 was an outlier. So, I don't think we're going to get anything close to – I don't think we're going to get that year. I also don't think we're going to get 2017 Wentz.
Yeah, I think the best idea for what Carson Wentz will bring to Washington, I'm looking at his stats right now, is literally the 2021 season. 27 touchdowns, 7 picks. That is about the ratio exactly the ratio he had in 2019. A little bit better than he had in 2018. But, I feel like 2021 Carson Wentz is exactly what we should expect out of Wentz this year. We're hoping for more, right? We're not hoping for less, but I think 2021 is a good, barometer for what Wentz will bring in DC. And, again, by saying that, you have to include the good and the bad with Wentz. The good being that his stats look good. He got the Colts to 9 wins last season. And I think he's going to get us to 9 wins this season. But also the bad, right? Like, he did wet the bed at the end of the season last year for the Colts. He also struggled to start out the gate for the Colts last season. So, again, you got to take the good with the bad with Wentz, and that is pretty much why I'm predicting the amount of wins I'm predicting.
Yeah, I think he could be a little better than 2021 Wentz if our weapons pan out, because I think our weapons are better than what he had last year, besides the running back position, because that obviously has us beat because Jonathan Taylor way better than Gibson and Brian Robinson. McKissick a little bit better. I would take McKissick over Hines for sure. But still, they got the better running back room. Offensive line, I think, I don't know, it's tough because last year they were not a very good pass blocking unit. They were a good run blocking unit, but they had a ton
They had a way better. I think they were ranked third, right, in run blocking. I think they had a better run blocking unit than we had, and we had a better pass blocking unit than they had.
Yeah,
right?
but in terms of like how it directly, affects Wentz, the pass blocking affects it more. So their pass blocking, I think, was not good at all last year. I mean, again, this is all subjective because this is PFF and stuff like that. So I think our pass blocking is going to be better than what he had last year. Tight ends, depends on when Logan Thomas comes back, right? Because if Logan Thomas is out for more than 4 games, it might change things. But I'm taking our tight end room over theirs for sure. Receivers, not even close receivers. So, I mean, I would take our, weapons and offensive line over what they had last year. This year, it's a little different because if their offensive line's healthy, then their offensive line is better for sure. With Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, like they got a good O-line for sure.
Yeah. I also think, this is sort of getting into the convo that we had over DMs, but I think Matt Ryan might be the better quarterback for the Colts just because of the fact that he is more of a quick read type of quarterback. He'll help out the O-line. The O-line will definitely help out him because of the fact that there are some players coming back from injury. But I don't know. The one point when people talk about how last year Carson Wentz didn't have like the greatest of O-lines in terms of pass blocking and stuff, I get that. That's a very valid point. My thing is, like, going into the season, the game plan was to not ask Carson Wentz to do too much at all, to rely on the legs of Jonathan Taylor, maybe have Carson Wentz throw it every now and then to a Michael Pittman Jr. or whatever weapon they had, to the tight ends, Jack Doyle or Mo Alley Cox. But the game plan was to rely on Jonathan Taylor. And when Jonathan Taylor admittedly struggled a little bit the last couple games of the season, when they finally asked Carson Wentz to put the team on his back to will his team to wins, not only did he not will his team to wins, he was a liability for his team the last 2 games of the season. And I'm sorry, like that just is front of my mind when I talk about Carson Wentz. Like, again, he shows he had great production last year. The stats are nice and stuff. So were Kirk Cousins stats, but at the end of the day, it's all about wins. And he did get his team to 9 wins last season, and that's what I'm predicting for us this season. But until I see Carson Wentz really be consistent every single game or for most games, then I can't really have us, being a better than 9-win team.
Yeah, I kind of got us in between 9 and 10. It's like I keep going back and forth. I think, though, yeah. I'll go to if Watson gets suspended for a year, I'm going 10 because I think that's a game where if Watson's playing, it's probably like a 78, 80% chance that they beat us. If Watson isn't playing, I would probably, take us on that. I think we would be favored, or I would favor us against the Browns. So if that's the case, if he does get suspended for 1 year, I think I'll for sure bump it up to 10. Let's see what's up, Austin the Sports. What's up, Slim Z? What's up, Donald Banner? So I want to say, because we were talking about the defense, about them being improved. I honestly, and this is like a caveat every year, but I feel like with this team specifically, it's even more of a caveat. If this team stays healthy, this defense, I think that I guarantee they'll be better. And the reason why I say this year the injuries are more important because I don't like the depth on this team. I do not like the depth on the D-line, linebackers, and corners. So basically the whole team except for safeties, I don't like the depth. So that's why I'm saying I'm not saying no one gets hurt, but I'm saying, for the most part, if we stay healthy, like I felt 2020, we were very healthy. Like, yeah, we lost a couple of players. Like Ioannidis was out. I think Landon Collins got hurt and a couple players got hurt, but not like we were last year where everyone was getting hurt. So I think if that happens, if we stay for the most part healthy, maybe lose 1 or 2 key guys, I think it's going to be hard for them to be worse. I mean, new D-line coach, love that. Or I guess, he's been on the team, but, he's going to be promoted. You don't have Sam Mills anymore. Secondary, I think last year, a lot of new, pieces on that secondary. You had, Bob McCain, who is new, William Jackson III, Benjamin St-Juste. So that's 3 guys, 3 starters that were new last year, and new defense and new teammates. And not only is it tough for them, it's tough for the guys around them too, because they have to get adjusted to that. So no new faces in the secondary in terms of starters this year. So that I think is going to help them out a ton. And also second year in the defense. So for the guys that struggled with the defense last year, like William Jackson III and maybe even Bob McCain early on in the season, I think that'll help them out a ton as well. The communication, I remember like last year in training camp, I was saying I was concerned with William Jackson III, even though it was like weird because it's just practice clips. I was like, guys, every time someone's getting burned in like a highlight video, it's William Jackson III, and people are like, it's just training camp. But I mean, it ended up being true. He was terrible. He was not good last year for the most part. There's a couple of games where he was solid, but I think this year we really haven't heard that much. I think there was a little noise about him being not great in OTAs, but in training camp, like I've heard actually good things about him. Fuller's been really good. Cam Crowell's been good. Bob McCain has been solid. And Benjamin St-Juste has also looked good as well. So, like, I think the secondary is going to be improved. Linebackers, I mean, it's hard to be worse than they were last year, but I don't think they're going to be, like, that much better. Like, it's really up to Jamin Davis. If he is, like, people want him to be elite in his second year, and he thinks he's going to – or he was saying, I'm going to be an all – whatever he said about being an all-pro. Like, that kind of made – that I literally laughed watching that. Like, I don't really laugh at many, like, watching videos and stuff. But that video, when I watched it, I kind of laughed. I chuckled a little bit. Not like hating on Jamin Davis or anything, but like to go from like playing terrible last year to being an all-pro in your second year. Hey, if he does it, all to him. I mean, I'll get it. If Jamin's an all-pro this year, I'll get a Jamin Davis jersey for sure. So, but I just don't see it happening. If we can get honestly average linebacker play from Jamin Davis, like average starting linebacker play, that is a win. That is a 100% a win, because last year we got Cole Holcomb, who was, I think, average, maybe a little bit, when he was playing Mike, I think he was like average. When he's playing outside linebacker, I think it was really solid last year. I think, we're going to get good play out of Cole Holcomb. But Jamin Davis, if we can go from terrible to okay, that's a big jump, and that'll help out the defense a ton. People and I think the same thing with De'Ami Brown sometimes. People are like, oh, we need him to have like 800-plus yards, and that's great. I would love De'Ami Brown at 800-plus yards. I just don't think it's realistic. It's almost impossible. I'm not going to say impossible, because if we have a ton of injuries, and hopefully it doesn't happen, knock on wood, I think that, I think something that would be good would be 400-plus yards. If he gets like 400, 500 yards, like that's like tripling what he had in his rookie year. And anytime you can triple your stats, like unless you had like a few catches, like that is a win. So, I think De'Ami and Jamin, people need to temper their expectations for him. And I think after training camp, like, we've been through 3 weeks, I think people are starting to realize Jamin Davis isn't going to have a huge year. But like Slimsy says, I'm expecting Jamin Davis to have a huge year. So, hey, if he does, that's great. He has the traits. Like, no one can deny he has the athletic traits. He's got
that's
the
why we drafted him 19th overall.
Yeah. He's got the 4.4 speed, 40-plus inch vertical. He's got the tools. It's just he's got to put it together. And a lot of that's on him, but part of it's on the linebacker coach as well. I think it's – can't remember who always says it with me, if it's Rio or not Rio, if it's Juan or if it's Corey, but one of them always, and I was always agreeing that we need to get rid of Steve Russ as well, the linebackers coach, because the linebacker room has been the worst unit on this team all 3 years, besides maybe QB. Linebacker's been the worst unit on this team every year. And I mean, I don't know how you can I guess it's only been 2 years, but even going into this year, like it's one of the worst units. And like a lot, I think part of that's on the coaching, and also part of it is on Ron. Like, I mean, Steve Russ is not working with much right now. Like, it's Jamin Davis, Cole Holcomb, and then no one. Like David Mayo, Khalil Hudson. So, and Gary right now. So I think that, that room is definitely the most important in terms of can we get improvement this year at the defense? Can this defense be top 10, top 15 defense? People are saying like, oh, I would be happy if the defense is top 20. No, I'm not. That's at the minimum, top 15. Let's say if they're 15, I'll still be a little disappointed. Like I'll be like maybe kind of okay with it. If they're top 12, top 13, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that. If they're top 10, I'm happy. If they're anything, above 7, top 7 or better, I'm very happy with that. But this defense is very talented, and they spent a lot of draft capital on this defense. Chase Young, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Fedarian Mathis now, Jamin Davis, Cameron Curl. Oh, not Cameron Curl, but like he is good. Kendall Fuller, they spent some money on him. William Jackson III. And real quick, someone asked this earlier. I forgot to answer. Then G-Man asked it again. So they said, "Do you guys know how to stream games this year without any subscriptions?" So there's kind of like some shady sites you can use that do work.
Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit. But if I think you look up 6 streams, and then Stream East. Both of those worked pretty well. Where like it might lag a little bit, but for the most part, and you might have to like click out of ads sometimes. But for the most part, it does work. And I think those crack streams, I don't know if that's still working, but it is a pretty good way. Like you can watch any game you want. It's just sometimes it's not like maybe one day it'll be down. Like not usually, but sometimes it happens. But that is sometimes I use that for a random game that because I don't have red zone and stuff like that. Or whatever a game pat, whatever NFL, whatever that is. So I don't get every single game. I get the local games, ESPN, NBC, stuff like that. But I'm not getting I can't watch every single game on cable unless I just watch it on these sites. So that's how I do it. Sometimes you use them or no, not to.
I've been having to. Well, my first year of college definitely had to use the shady sites, the Reddit and everything. But then I don't know what happened during the 2019 offseason, but NFL was super strict and they started to like basically shut down every single link and stuff. So it reached the point where I had to get Sunday ticket. So I've been using that the last couple of years, using the student discount and everything. But yeah, unfortunately, that's the way I've had to go the last couple of years. It kind of sucks though, because like sometimes I just don't want to watch all the other games because I might have homework or I might have stuff to do. But I mean, that's the only way to watch out of market games right now, unless the NFL comes up with a subscription service and changes that. But who knows?
Yep, for sure. And just put DMV Sports Zone channel link in the chat. Make sure you guys sub up to them, like this stream, sub up to me as well. What's up, Exotic? So yeah. That is definitely a way to do it. I was talking to Abdul. I was like, "Oh, we definitely got to watch a game together." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, but I'm gonna be watching on the site." So we'll see. I might be able to bring my like laptop because I think I can use my computer to watch some games on actual like cable. So we'll see. That should be fun. Maybe we'll do a live stream while the game's going on. I was talking to Abdul. We're gonna do some collabs for sure. Should be fun. So. Let's see, training camp. So we talked about preseason, some guys that were, excited to watch. Now let's talk a little bit about training camp. So kind of your biggest takeaways from training camp, guys that have impressed you, guys that have maybe disappointed you. Maybe you're not hearing as much as you thought you would about some players. So maybe give one from each side or a couple from each side.
So the guy... I mean,
what's up, door gunner?
I could go with the easy answer in terms of the guy that impressed me with Jahan Dotson. But I will say sort of an easy answer, but kind of different. Cole Turner has definitely impressed me for sure. I did like what he brought to the table as a receiver, just coming out of college, seeing some of his highlights in college and some of the good things he did there. But it's kind of crazy to just see him really come out the gate running with the Washington Commanders and really put some good things out there on the training camp field. And I'm excited to see him potentially vie for starting reps as tight end 1, at least with Logan Thomas being out at the start of the season. So I definitely would say Cole Turner has been the surprise and someone who I think will be a good player for us this season. But in terms of someone who I haven't liked so much during training camp practice, that's tough. I'll say two. Actually, no. I'll go with Gibson, just because we've still heard about his fumbling issues during training camp. He's looked pretty spry out there, but the fumbling issues, which we thought were corrected this offseason, they continue to bite him in the you-know-what. So hopefully that doesn't become a problem in, year 3 for him.
Yeah, I mean, I only heard about it for one day, and it was kind of like they said 2 happened, but I think there was like one shaky exchange where like it was hard to blame Gibson on that, and I forgot the other one. So I mean, it is definitely it is concerning, and I think Gibson's going to be the starter. I think he's going to get a majority of the carries, but I think Brian Robinson will definitely get a decent amount. I mean, you can't draft a guy in the 3rd round to be a goal line short yardage back. If that's who you get, if you get a slightly better version of Peyton Barber, like in the 3rd round, that is terrible. So
to be fair, he was pretty much a 4th round pick, though. I think he was only 6 picks away from being 4th round.
But still, like a late 3rd, early 4th, like that's still a pretty big investment, or at least a significant investment. And he needs to be like, I don't need him to get like 10 carries a game, but he needs to be getting, like, I would say, at probably averaging around 7-8 carries a game. Maybe the first few games of the season will be a little bit less, but at some point he needs to be getting those carries. And if Gibson goes down, he's obviously going to get 15, 20 plus carries. He's going to get probably averaging 19 carries. And that's why I like the pick. I think it was a little early, but I like the pick because you get a great insurance policy. If Gibson goes down, you have someone that truly can, take over that workload. With someone like Jarrett Patterson, I don't know if he can get you. Like, I don't know if I would feel good with Patterson getting me 20 carries, 2 or 3 games. And McKissick, definitely not. Because McKissick, I like McKissick for like a few carries a game. Like sometimes I think when it was just Gibson McKissick, I think that they underutilized McKissick sometimes because like he occasionally would like, have a long run for like 8-9 yards, and he's a solid runner, but you want him like 3-4 carries a game, not that much more than that. If McKissick goes 15-20 carries, first off, maybe gets injured, second off, I don't think he's going to be that effective. So I think I like the Brian Robinson pick for that reason. What's up, Uptown Dre? I appreciate you coming through. When I was there, Brian Robinson was getting the reps with the ones on the last day, probably not all the reps, but I would say probably like 60-40. So I'm not going to take too much, of that, but I think that it is a little significant, and we'll see. I'm excited to see the first preseason game. Like that's kind of where we'll really see how many carries each of those guys are getting, who's with the 1, who's with the 2.
Yeah, I will say with Brian Robinson, I said this early in the offseason, I'm not really backing down from it. It wouldn't surprise me if Brian Robinson leads our team in goal line touchdowns this year. I mean, he's built for that type of position or that type of role in our offense. And also, might help eliminate some of the wear and tear that Antonio Gibson has accumulated over the years. But I will say this. Let me ask you this question, Pedro, because I forgot what site had it, but there was recently there was a ranking of running backs in the NFL. I think Antonio Gibson was like in the 20s or something.
I saw that, 26. I think that's
where would you rank him though? Because I feel like it's kind of I don't know where I would. Not that low, but
definitely not 26. I mean, I think he is still a very solid running back. Like the fumbling issues, that's concerning, and I don't know.
Also the vision. What? Is nobody going to talk about that? I know the last time we saw Antonio Gibson, he was running roughshod all over the field because he was playing against the New York Giants, and it was in a game that really didn't matter. But in my opinion, his vision is still, although it's improving, it's still not where we want it to be as a top 10 running back in this league, despite the fact that he had, I think he was 6th in rushing yards last season. That's why it's confusing. It's really difficult for me to rank him because his stats might show that he is a top 6, top 7 running back in this league. But at the same time, there were a lot of injuries to top flight running backs last year that contributed to him being having that ranking, but also 2, the fumbling issues, and 3, in my opinion, his vision is still not there to be a top 10 running back. I don't know if you disagree.
I don't know. I think that 26 way too low. Like I think I would put him at least. I would probably put him minimum 8 to 10 spots higher than that. I think also, like, I don't know if it's the reason, but he has a little bit of an excuse with the fumbling, with just all the injuries he had last year, and that's kind of a knock on him. Is the injuries, but it could have contributed to the fumbles. I think. I mean, that was like that's what I'm most concerned with him are probably the injuries and the fumbles because like he hasn't had any major injuries, but every single week last year he was questionable. He had hip injury, a shoulder injury, a shin injury, a toe injury. He had the virus, so like he had so many things going on, and like I definitely think it took a toll on him in terms of like, okay, I really don't want to get hit on this play. And he has to think about that. I mean, obviously you're going to get hit, but like he's thinking about how he's going to get hit, and maybe that hurt him in the fumbling department. I think Khan was talking about it the other day on his podcast. Like the second half of the season, or maybe like the last 8 games of the season, he didn't, struggle that much with the fumbles, but it was really the first 10-ish games of the season. So we'll see. But I think Brian Robinson for sure, just to take some carries off of Gibson's workload, I think he for sure should be getting those short yardage situations in terms of like, okay, it's 3rd and 1, it's 3rd and 2, give it to Brian Robinson. 4th and 1, give it to Robinson. Goal line, we'll see who's better at it, because if Gibson's better at it, give me Gibson. But like if he starts after that first fumble at the goal line or at our own goal line, that's when I'm like, okay, Brian Robinson, take it over for now. And if it happens again, Gibson, then I don't know. You're not getting any goal line or short yardage situations, because last year he had 2 goal line fumbles, one on our own goal line against the Chargers, which directly resulted in a touchdown. And I know he had at least 1, maybe 2 fumbles, when we're about to get a touchdown. So he needs to work on that for sure. And yeah. That's a good point, G-Man. And he went like 8 weeks without barely practicing, maybe even more than 8 weeks. I mean, he was questionable every single week of the season, I think. And it was crazy is that the game after he sat out, where he got a break, I mean, I think he had, the virus, but like his body got to take a little bit of a break. He had his best game by far. So, I mean, it was also against the Giants, but their defense wasn't even like that terrible last year. I think it was like around average ranking, but their offense was just terrible with Jake Fromm and Kenny Galladay.
Yeah. Like lastly on this, like my thing is, again, it's sort of difficult to rank him just because of all the factors that we talked about. And he's definitely not in the 20s. I think at worst, he's in the late teens. But like, my thing is, can we really constantly say that Antonio Gibson is 1 or 2 fumbles away from being benched, from this being Brian Robinson's team, and then in the same sentence say he's a top 10 running back in this league, top 12 running back in this league? I don't know if I could say that. That's where my difficulty is in ranking him in the NFL.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I really need to see a full year healthy of Gibson. Like, that will really tell us a ton about him. His yards per carry were down last year, and I don't love the yards per carry stat, because it's like, okay, it really depends not only on your O-line, but also your play caller, because like there was so many times last year, and I know it happens to not just Gibson, it happens to most running backs, but I thought for Gibson to happen more than others, where like, someone would miss a block and he gets -6 yards on a play, like something like that, where it's none, out of his control. He has, he can't control that at all, and he gets a -6 yards. But his yards per carry were down last year. Touchdowns a little bit down from his rookie year, still solid. Yards were, up from his rookie year. But yeah, it's going to be, if he plays a full 17 games, I think we'll know what we need to know about Gibson. And the thing is, though, like, I don't know what Gibson can do for me to want to pay him, because like the running back position, it's just like, when has it looked good to pay an elite running back? Like, I'm trying to think. Todd Gurley,
except for, in my opinion, Derrick Henry's only been the one, that sort of has panned out. Yeah, I know he had the injury last year, but he was paid.
Like, I think Derrick Henry has panned out.
He's carrying that team.
What?
Yeah. He's been carrying that team
exactly
on his back.
Todd Gurley, terrible contract. David Johnson, terrible contract. Zeke,
Christian McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey been injured the last 2 years. We'll see. Jury's still out, but right now it's not a good contract. Zeke,
$16 million per year.
Yeah, Zeke not great. He's still a capable running back, but not worth. Would I rather have Tony Pollard for $1 million a year or whatever his contract is, or Zeke for $16 million? That's just the problem with the running back position, and I don't know how what the NFL can do to fix it, because it seems terrible for the running backs in terms of the players, because you can get these running backs for you can get elite running backs in the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds, maybe not elite, but really good running backs. James Robinson, a pretty good running back. You got him in the 7th round. Elijah Mitchell was solid last year. You got him in I think the 7th round, 5th, 7th round. So there's no reason to pay these elite guys unless they truly Jonathan Taylor. You probably want to pay him. Derrick Henry, that's the situation where it's tough. I think a more realistic scenario is Gibson. If he's playing well, you franchise tag him for a year. It buys you another year with him where it's maybe 12, 13 mil. It's just tough. And that's why maybe bringing Brian Robinson was a good pick, because they can have him once Gibson's gone, if he's gone.
Kind of unrelated, but just an idea that came up in my head, because we always talk about there's some people talk about how the running back position is becoming a dying breed, just because of the fact that running backs' careers are usually really short compared to other positions. Also, the amount of money you just talked about, unless you're a Derrick Henry or a freaking Christian McCaffrey, but even then, more teams are leaning towards not paying their guys, right? So I feel maybe an idea to fix that might be fixing the rookie wage scale, so then running backs are specifically getting more money as rookies or on their rookie deals than maybe other positions, just because running backs oftentimes, again, they don't really last past their first contract, and if they do, they don't really get nearly half the amount of money that other positions are getting, especially on offense. So maybe that's just something to throw out there.
Yeah, that would be tough to do, but I think it would work, but it would be it would be tough to give a running back 40% more than another position. But I don't know.
It'll also incentivize a lot, even people coming up right through the high school and college ranks to still play the position, just because there's that financial security immediately after potentially getting into the league. So I don't know. That was just something I just thought on the spot.
Then also but then almost you might be, I don't know, it would be tough, because then maybe you're not incentivized to draft one because it's a little bit higher, he's more paid. And also that's why teams don't draft the running back in the first, not only because you're not wasting, but you kind of are on a running back where you could get a guy off the streets that's capable for you. And then also running backs in the first round, the contract's pretty high. So if you draft one in the top 10, you're paying him whatever that is, $5-6 million a year. Which is, a solid amount for a running back. That's probably about average, where the average running back in the NFL is getting paid, and you're doing that as a rookie. So, yeah, that's something to consider as well. But, it's definitely unfortunate for the running backs out there. So, back into training camp, I would say, but that was a good discussion there. Jamin, and I know you got to go in a couple minutes, so we're going to wrap it up. Jamin Davis, one guy that kind of I don't hear as much as I wanted to hear. Not a single splash play. All I wanted last year was I guess there was maybe 1 or 2 moments, but I was I want to see why we drafted this guy at 19. Show me that 4.4 speed, that 40-inch vertical, whatever, the athletic freak that we thought he would be. And I didn't see really. I don't think a single play, there was one play against the Giants in the last game where he made the right read and he got the tackle, and there was one against the Bills.
4th down stop, right, against the Bills.
Yeah, that was solid, but still, it was. I think was that did he make the tackle or did he break up the pass? I forgot.
I think he made a tackle. I think it was a tackle.
Still, though, I didn't see, to only see and still debatable 2 plays in the season where it's okay, that's first round talent, that's just not enough, not nearly enough. And this man was losing snaps to David Mayo, and he still is. And the thing is, people love to make excuses for these players and be like, oh, Ron Rivera loves to rotate these players around, get them reps with the first team. And that is true at like some points, but I've not heard or seen, from what I, saw there or any tweets saying Cole Holcomb is running with the second team. Khalid Hudson's taking his first team snaps. No, it's happening with Jamin Davis though. So it's tough. And like also people are like, because Jamin Davis doesn't play in the 5, D lineman packages, and people are like, that's just how it works. Well, if he was what we thought he would be in the first round, he would be playing those packages. So don't make excuses for the guy. Like, he needs to ball out this year and not be an elite linebacker. Give me solid linebacker play. I will be very, very happy and encouraged with what he will give us in the third year, because again, he didn't play much in college. Like, he started 1 year. So like, he was going to be a raw prospect anyways. He's going to be a project, and you switch him to a different position, that's going to take more time. So if he can play average this year, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think we're getting. I would love to see elite Jamin Davis play here in DC.
All-pro Jamin Davis.
Yeah, in his second year. But I definitely agree with you. Just solid linebacker play, man, would not just be a huge help for this defense, but a huge change up from what we've had over the last, I don't know how many years.
Yeah, for a while. So yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up there. Appreciate you coming through. Some other names real quick that I think have impressed: Dax Milne, guys like that. You said Cole Turner, Montez Sweat, Kendall Fuller, guys like that. Definitely impressed for sure. So yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Appreciate you for coming through, Nati. Make sure you guys sub up to DMD Sports Zone. Again, great content. Gonna put the link in the chat, and the link will be in the description. If you guys are watching this on replay. And yeah, appreciate everyone for coming through. Roger Smith, Kevin the PRF, G-Man, PS right there, Uptown Dre, Exotic, everyone for coming through, Door Gunner. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace.